Musical Talk, the UK independent musical theatre podcast.
Hello, welcome to Musical Talk. My name is Nick Hudson. I'm sitting here with Dominic McChesney, or Mac Chesney, as I believe your name is pronounced.
As we discovered, yes. I've got to get really close.
Yes.
Yes, we discovered I've been saying my name wrong for 49, 50 years.
What a joke, Dom. That is the theme of today's episode.
Yes.
We want to talk about musical farces. And it's really hard to find a list of them online, so we thought we'd compile one of our own very quickly, start the episode really calmly, and then descend into chaos as the episode goes on.
And hopefully a vicar will come in with his trousers round his ankles and a lampshade on his head.
And lots of doors slamming and mistaken identities and things like that. It's worth, for those of you who don't know, giving a brief description of the different types of farce. So we just described there an English farce, is that correct?
Yes, I tend to think, as I thought about this, I thought I'm wrong. But yes, English farce, that would be from the heyday of the farces was Ben Travers, who did the Aldwych farces. And the famous ones that he did were Rookery Nook, which became a farce musical called Pop Kiss. It was a big pot boiler for a lot of Amdram theatricals when I was a kid. A lot of them did Rookery Nook because it was, very funny. And then you had the Whitehall farces, which was Brian Ricks, who really was a master of farce. Should we define what farce is?
Yes.
So farce is a comic, according to Wikipedia, the dictionary, it is a comic dramatic work using buffoonery and horseplay, and typically including crude characterization and ludicrously impossible situations.
And words to say.
Yes, it is a situation that gets more and more ridiculous as the show or play goes on.
My understanding was that you have English farce, which is the progression of ludicrousness.
Yes.
And then you have French farce, which is absolute chaos in the beginning and stays at that level from the beginning to the end. So obviously English farce is the one that we are looking at when it comes to songs in musicals.
Well, there will be an exception to that, which is because there's Italian farce, because certainly one of the greatest farcical writers was Italian. And if you go back as far as someone like Pirandello, then you're entering farce in some of his plays as well. Anyway.
Obviously the farce I know is English farce, which is Fawlty Towers and, the doors slamming and the pies and faces and trousers falling down and all that kind of stuff.
And also One Foot in the Grave is, even though it's got a slower pace to it, it actually has a farcical element because the situations...
Absurd.
Well, they are absurd, but they're actually quite mundane. So they all have typical reasons. And I think it was Ray Cooney, who is a great English farce writer. He said in an interview, I think I read, that farce must be played like it's tragedy. And in fact, a lot of farce, if you play it for humour, it doesn't...
It has to be played realistically for all comedy to work, doesn't it?
Yes, exactly. It's like most comedy. If you try to play it for the comedy, it doesn't work. Whereas if you play it absolutely straight and it spiral off into a weird area.
Before we get into our list, I presume some Gilbert and Sullivan has farce in it, if we're going to start at the beginning.
It does. Mistaken identities, without going too much into GNS, because we're going to talk about specific shows and numbers within shows that have that
farce
build
structure
moment. I would say the one that springs to mind is with Cat Like Tread from Pirates Penzance, and certainly that is arguably one of the most famous mainstream GNSs. And Cat Like Tread is the humour is because you've got the pirates and the policemen all singing together, and it builds and builds and builds. So, and you've got a lot of physical comedy from the pirates and they're singing with Cat Like Tread and then stomping on the ground, and then you've got the policemen. In the Joseph Papp New York production with Kevin Kline, which was hugely popular and successful, they really took the farcical element to quite an extreme. I think it's all online. So that's a great jumping off point, I would say.
Obviously the Producers also has elements of farce in it, but no sung farce, which is interesting.
For me, the most successful farcical musical of all of them, and it is from the beginning to the end, is on the 20th Century by Cy Coleman and Comden and Green. And it's based on a play, which was then made into a film called The 20th Century. And it is all set on board a train called The 20th Century, travelling from Chicago to New York in 16 hours. I was in it in summer stock when I was about 18 or 19 in America. And we did the whole thing on a turntable, which was man-powered. Probably wouldn't be allowed today. And from the moment the show starts to the end, it is so funny. It is very clever. But it has one number which I think is the epitome of all farcical numbers, which is She's a Nut. And it is a chase song. And that is the basis for it. It is all the characters and the action culminates at this point, and it builds and builds and builds till everybody's on stage singing the same refrain, which they have been singing for the last 3 minutes over and over again. And it is very clever, I think. You listened to it and you said it's very interesting because the thing you noticed was...
Well, you played me a song from another musical about someone talking about Freud and the mind.
Oh, yes.
What song was that?
That was Dr. Freud from the musical I Had a Ball, which is all about the people who lived in and worked on Coney Island. And it's a song about the fortune teller in Coney Island.
So that's the other topic we have to do is musicals that you have theme parks in them.
You've been wanting to do that one for years, haven't you? So, but he's got a magic crystal ball, and he discovers.
There's obviously kind of a thing in these songs. They all have 3 words in the title.
Yes.
Or da 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 da. The pig one from By Jeeves has it, which you and Michael Gordon Shapiro pointed out is also very similar to Be Our Guest.
Yes.
And also the song you played me from I Had a Ball is called
Dr. Freud.
Dr. Freud, and the one from On the 20th Century is called
She's a Nut.
So it's I'm clutching at straws here, but it's kind
a
of
very interesting point.
Yeah, but probably completely incorrect. But yeah, I like that number. It culminates in a fabulous visual gag, doesn't it?
Yes, it does, yes. I know in the original production they actually had the front of the train hurtling towards the audience, and this character was straddled at the front of the train, and then that would turn around, and then suddenly she's on the back of the train, waving.
Was it a double or something, do you think? Or?
I'm not sure how they did it. I think probably doors and things. Julia Mackenzie was in it in London. She played the
train.
No, she did not play. She played Lily Garland, and Keith Michelle was Oscar, and Dora Bryan played Letitia Peabody Primrose.
That's a good name.
It's a wonderful name. But she was replaced by Anne Beach, who was fantastic, apparently. I didn't see it, sadly, but yes.
It's completely ridiculous because shouldn't work, but would a musical of Noises Off work?
I don't know. It's difficult,
Arguably one of the most famous farces.
Yes, indeed.
Of all time.
It would be very interesting. The only thing is that the first half is very repetitive because it's about the rehearsal of the farce. So it's an interesting thought. I don't know. I don't know how you'd have to progress it. Maybe as an opera. Strangely, I mean, farcical operas. I wonder. Yes, I mean, certainly, if you look at Mozart, I suppose you can say Mozart wrote farcical operas. Didn't
I'm sure there's loads of farce and opera, but we don't know about that. But a show I saw on Broadway, Dirty Rotten Scoundrels.
Yes, I saw that one on Broadway too.
Hurrah! We actually have something in common that we can talk about for once. No songs of farce, apart from possibly the reveal moment.
Yes, I agree.
But the whole thing just accelerates to this ridiculous pace.
Yes.
And very, very funny show.
Wonderful. And it was very well done. Did you see John Lithgow?
I did. I was very lucky to see John Lithgow and Norbert Leo Butts and Sherry Renee Scott. Less excited about Sherry Renee Scott, but I was very excited to see John Lithgow. I
saw her understudy, who was fabulous.
Good. I just love the opening, the very, very opening. I've said this many times over the tannoy. You hear John Lithgow saying, "Ladies and gentlemen, at this production of Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, there will be no pre-show announcement. Thank you."
Which sets up the farcical element immediately. I mean, you've got...
And you had ushers in the audience singing songs at you and things.
Yes, but you set up that comedy immediately. And a lot of people don't like farce because they find it too broad a comedy. But the thing about it is that it should all stem from completely understandable situations, and the ridiculousness is born from these moments.
Do we therefore include Spamalot in this list? Or is that...
Good question. I don't think we do, because I think Spamalot is, in itself, it's a spoof of King Arthur and the Holy Grail. So it has comedy in it, it has farcical comedy in it, but I wouldn't say it's a farcical musical comedy, simply because it's being pastiche, isn't it? I mean, you're not having one situation getting completely out of hand, and I think that's the key.
Is that an important aspect of farce, do you think?
I think so. This could be argued. As Thos has often said, I could be wrong. I have been in the past.
That's your opinion.
So, but yes, I don't think Spamalot. I think that's more of a comedy. I think it's got to stem from a situation getting out of hand.
You want to mention the Boys from Syracuse.
The Boys from Syracuse. Well, it's probably one of the oldest farces ever written. I mean, they're a Greek farce, obviously. A lot of Greek and Roman theatre had farcical elements. The Boys from Syracuse is based on the Shakespearean play The Comedy of Errors, which has had about 3 or 4 musicals, but this is the most famous musical of it, I think. And it's Rodgers and Hart. There's wonderful songs in it, and that's very fast-paced, and it's all about mistaken identity. We used the same turntable when we did that, by the way, as well, so because I did that in America. And that certainly goes out of hand because of its all mistaken identity. I think one of the key moments of farce as well is that if the characters just took a breath and actually turned and faced all the people that they should confront and explain the situation, it would all be completely normal, which would
then
be
there'd
the
be no
case.
comedy in anything, would there?
It's exactly the case with One Foot in the Grave, isn't it?
Yeah.
That if he actually turned around and explained something, then it would all be fine.
You mentioned Greek and Roman stuff. We have to mention a funny thing happened on the way to the forum.
Very much probably one of the greatest musical farces again. So I've actually never seen it on stage, which is terribly sad.
I have.
Yes, but you didn't like it, did you?
It's not that I didn't like it. I didn't appreciate it. It was the national production many, many years ago, and I went with my father. I don't know why. And I was probably 13 or 14 at the time, and it was just completely...
You were 13?
Yeah, just completely lost on me. I liked the Maid song because that was funny because it kept repeating itself.
Well, that's the thing, is the story and the action is farcical, but if you listen to the cast album, the songs aren't, apart from Comedy Tonight and Everybody Ought to Have a Maid, but the other songs aren't particularly farcical.
Yeah. Is A Little Priest farcical?
No.
Does that get more ridiculous as it goes on with their excitement
No, I think
about the idea?
No, because it's not... There isn't a tension of the situation unravelling. There's no threat. It's them just singing about... I think that's maybe an element that's needed. There has to be a threat. So that's not... that's just comedy.
He's a threat.
Well, yes, he's a threat to London town, but it's not. They're not trying to resolve something.
We have to mention Betty Blue Eyes by Stiles and Drew, and based on the Alan Bennett film, A Private Function, wasn't it?
It is.
I saw it. You didn't see
I didn't.
it, did you? No.
Out of the country at the time.
But you know the album, obviously,
I
because
do.
you just happened to quote one of the songs in it. Very tuneful show, very funny. I remember the pig scene, that being a farce. It's very long, though.
That pig scene.
Yeah.
You see, that's what I love. I love these numbers that are very long and get more and more ridiculous. It's one of the things I really enjoy in a musical, is when you get something. Which, when I was talking to Michael about It's a Pig from By Jeeves, it's that no pig does what I want It's a Pig to do. Gosh, pigs and farces, who knew?
I know.
So,
Trot along.
because no pig does build to a really fast...
You'd rather have no pig than a pig, is what you're trying to say.
That's right. But does it build up with the child being locked in a cupboard or something like that? Or
I can't remember.
that is the big farcical number, isn't it? And It's a Pig just doesn't quite go anywhere. You want it to so
It's
badly,
Andrew
and it
Lloyd
never... no.
Spoonful of Sugar and Mary Poppins could be considered a farce.
No, I wouldn't say that.
Okay.
No.
I disagree.
You've got to have a difference between, I think, like I said, there's got to be some threat, there's got to be some danger, and there's got to be something trying to be solved or
reveal or something.
Reveal, yes.
Well, speaking of then, I think we have to include Full Disclosure from the Addams Family musical.
Yes. I think that, and maybe even One Normal Night.
Okay.
Well, there's not comedy, but I think the Addams Family is certainly a musical farce, and because there is something at risk. They are trying to resolve things, and there's mistaken situation. And full disclosure, it's the cup of truth is not given to Wednesday; it's given to Mrs. whatever her name is.
And it has the very bizarre moment when she just does this completely.
Oh yes, and climbs on the table.
Languid thing.
She's waiting, doesn't she? Yes.
Little Me. Tell me about that.
Little Me. Little Me is a musical by lyrics by Carolyn Lee and music by Cy Coleman again. And the book is by Patrick Dennis, who also wrote a little musical called Mame, or wrote the original story, which then became the play, which then became the film, which then became the musical, which then became a musical film. And Little Me was very clever. If you've seen the original book, you can still buy it. I've got a copy. It is a little bit rare to get. And what it was Patrick Dennis was a writer and journalist in New York, and he got together with all his friends who worked in the entertainment industry and theatre in New York and Broadway, and he took this bunch of photographs of these outrageous characters and then wrote a story. I don't know whether he wrote the story as he took the photographs or took the photographs first or however. But you've got this bizarre fake autobiography of this character called Belle Poitrine. And that was made into the musical Little Me. It was very much a vehicle for Sid Caesar on Broadway. And he plays all the suitor characters. So he plays about 7 or 8 characters. And it's this woman's journey from being born on the wrong side of the tracks to becoming this huge, successful Hollywood star. In London, and it was strange because it was one of his only musicals that he did on stage, the character of the Suitors was played by Bruce Forsyth. And in fact, that cast recording of the Bruce Forsyth version, if you can get hold of it, I think it's wonderful. I think it's actually better than Sid Caesar version.
Little Me there.
Can I just say?
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, we're back. We had a little commercial break.
We went for tea.
We made you a cup of tea. It nearly was a farcical moment because I nearly put orange juice in your tea instead of milk. Anyway, moving on.
Little Me leads us on nicely to our next one. Sid Caesar played many people, and also the same idea is used in A Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder, isn't it?
It is indeed, yes.
Were you impressed with that segue?
I was very, very good.
Took me... We've gone making tea for 10 minutes.
I know, it was very, very clever. So, yes, A Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder uses one actor to play all the members of the Dysquith family, which is used in the film Kind Hearts and Coronets, and it's Alec Guinness.
Who else?
We've talked about that show before because I love it. It's originally a book called Israel Rank. Then it was made into the film Kind Hearts and Coronets. I think the musical improved on both the 2 versions that have gone before.
Both Hearts and Coronets.
Yes, indeed. Yes, the musical works very well. The biggest farcical moment in it is the song I've Decided to Marry You, which was performed at the Tony Awards, and that is brilliantly staged. You've got the doorway with the 2 characters in each room and the character in the middle. And so that's the most farcical moment in the whole show, which is strange because those are the 3 romantic leads, as it were.
Something's Afoot.
Something's Afoot.
I swear we mentioned this when we did our murder mystery episode all those years ago.
Oh, yes, we did. Well, this is actually, there's been developments this year from Something's Afoot because...
Something's Afoot.
I know. It was announced at the end of last year that they were finally going to do a studio cast recording. And John Yap of J Records got together a cast, and he managed to get a studio recording of the cast album of Something's Afoot. So finally, after years and years of waiting, we do have a wonderful cast recording. I got mine this year, and it's great fun. Susie Blake plays Miss Tweed. It is certainly a musical farce. It doesn't get particularly frantic, maybe at the end of Act 1, but certainly because it's a ridiculous situation. 10 people in a house. It is the spoof of And Then There Were None. 10 people in a house being killed in more and more ridiculous ways. But we do have the cast recording if you can get hold of it, when you can get hold of it through J Records and other places, and Amazon, and you are a fan of the odd shows that were never recorded, then please do get it. It is a little delight and gem. I think it adapts very well to the cast album, regardless of the fact that so much of the action is very important to the plot. They've done it as best that they can to give you an idea of the storyline and what happens. You don't get all the deaths, but you do get a good idea of the storyline as you listen to it.
And you can't watch there's a televised version that's on YouTube, isn't there?
Yes, there was. It was recorded for American TV back in the 70s, I believe, and with Maureen Stapleton playing Miss Tweed and Andy Gibb. And so he plays one of the characters in it. And that's good fun. I think it's hit and miss. I think it's played a little bit too much for laughs for my taste. I did see a production back in the 90s, which was just dreadful.
Yeah.
It was dreadful, but I knew the show, but it was the first time I'd seen it professionally, so that was good. But
so from musical comedies made for stage on television, we have a television show made for the stage with Acorn Antiques.
Ah, yes. Now,
I might not be here for the facts, but I'm here for the segues, so...
I'm wondering whether the first act would be considered more farcical than the second, because although
Now, I've never seen Acorn Antiques, but doesn't it do something weird, like you're watching actors playing characters... You're watching actors playing characters putting on a musical, and the second half is backstage or something like that?
No, not quite. The first half is the actors who were in the TV show coming together to do a musical version of Acorn Antiques, and it all goes farcically wrong, and you have the ridiculous situations building. The second half is the full musical of Acorn Antiques,
with real actors, isn't it, or something like that?
Well, it is all the characters from the first half, then putting on the show. So you'll then watch. So the first half is all the rehearsals, and the second half is what happens when they actually put it on. It is not backstage. Things do go wrong, but things go wrong in the sense of how they used to go wrong in the TV show. So cheap sets and things
Almost
that move.
Pays homage to Noises Off, really.
Yes, but it's not quite the same.
Okay.
Because I would say the first half is more farcical than the second half. I think the one thing that struck me when I was downstairs making the tea, there are some shows that have farcical musical numbers in them, but the shows themselves aren't farces. Then there are other shows that are farces all the way through. Well, like On the 20th Century is a farce from the beginning to the end. Boys from Syracuse is a farce. The songs aren't necessarily farcical. But then there are other shows, like one that struck my mind was My Favourite Year by Aronson Flaherty.
Yes, and I've got Lucky Stiff written down as well.
Yes, that's a perfect example. But My Favourite Year has a number called Welcome to Brooklyn, which kind of is more farcical than the rest of it.
Was there farce in A Man of No Importance?
No.
Okay. Lucky Stiff, of course.
There was a moment of farce in A Man of No Importance, but not really.
That's when you came on.
No. Thank you.
Another one I found when you were making the tea was Where's Charlie?
Oh, yes, of course.
Which is Charlie? A Frank Lesser musical.
Which is bizarrely another of the shows that I did in America when I was 18 or 19. Where's Charlie is the musical version of Charlie's Aunt, written by Frank Lesser, which is...
Her heart might be in the right place, but her Charlie's Aunt. Any 2-1 fans out there.
There is a film version of it, which apparently Frank Lesser hated, and so it got withdrawn. It's never been released on DVD. It's got some really lovely numbers in it, very funny.
It's interesting, though, what other farce songs has Sondheim done? Because we must be missing a load of them. I mean, you think of Sondheim, you think if anyone could do a farce...
We've jumped from Frank Lesser to Sondheim very, very quickly. Yes. Well, let's have a think. If you go to the Frogs, I would say the Frogs in the Frogs is one which builds. It's a song that builds and builds and builds to a ridiculous situation and gets more and more ridiculous as the frogs attack. So I think that has a certain amount of a farcical element.
Let's end.
Well, we haven't gone to Lucky Stiff. You started.
No, let's carry on then with Lucky Stiff.
Lucky Stiff is absolutely a musical farce. And the big number, I would say, sadly cut in the film version. And yes, you've heard that right. If you don't know, there is a film version of Lucky Stiff.
And it's a murder mystery as well.
It's a murder mystery, and it's a farce. They cut the big farcical number, which is she, him, her, it.
Why do you think they cut the farce number from the film?
Good question. I don't know. I would be interested to know whether they... I don't know whether they even filmed it. Yes. If you know, listener, please write in. The other two shows I'm thinking of, though we're not really going into much depth about this. But
no, we're out of time.
No, but I quite like this. People can go and research these.
Do it yourself. Carry on, Tom.
Another farce show could possibly be Henry, Sweet Henry, based on the book The World of Henry Orient, and then made into a film with Peter Sellers and Angela Lansbury. That's about two girls who become obsessed by a kind of Lothario, and the musical has farcical numbers. There's a wonderful YouTube video of a number called Poor Little Person, which was done on the Ed Sullivan Show, and it's fabulous, really wonderful. Was a strange show because a minor character, the actor who played the minor character, became the big star, which was Alice Playton, and she became the big star of the show. And it also featured in the chorus a young Pia Zadora. And do you know Pia Zadora?
Wasn't that a musical by Karen Deneuve as well?
No, it wasn't. Pia Zadora.
What am I thinking of?
She was a movie star. Yes. The story, I don't know whether this is true, to go down to just an funny anecdote, was that she apparently was in a production of The Diary of Anne Frank on Broadway or off Broadway. And
but that had no farce in it.
No, but apparently the story and rumour goes, I don't know how true this is, allegedly what happened was the performance, and she was so awful in the role that at the moment when the Nazis stormed into the house, somebody stood up in the audience and shouted, "She's in the attic."
You kind of want that to be true, though, don't you?
Well, it is, yes. The other show I'm thinking of, which is absolutely a farce, Drat the Cat. Have you heard of that?
I haven't, no.
Have you heard of a play called Death Trap?
Yes.
And have you heard of The Boys from Brazil?
No.
Rosemary's Baby, horror
Yes.
film. Okay, Rosemary's Baby, they were all written by the playwright and author Ira Levin. And he wrote the lyrics and the book to the musical Drat the Cat, which was a starring vehicle for Leslie Ann Warren.
Playing the cat, obviously.
Playing where she plays rich New York society debutante, and she's actually a jewel thief. And she's hunted down by the police officer Purfoy, who was played by Elliot Gould, and it was produced by Barbara Streisand. Now, she had a hit from the show. She took a song called He Touched Me, which became a big hit. But there are some very, very good farcical numbers in it. The original production apparently had like flaps that fell down and people
purpose?
popped out. Yes, okay.
Part
of the set, like trapdoors in the set that would fall out and people would jump out of it. There's the opening number, Drat the Cat, had all these weird, elaborate effects. There's a very farcical, there's a very funny waltz number at the end of Act 1 called I'm Dancing with Alice, which has some, and the lyrics that I mean Ira Levin, his lyrics are great, I think. I mean, I'm sure people will argue against that, but they're full of good rhymes and they're very funny. And it's very surprising that he didn't do others. I wish he had. The music was by Milton Schaefer, but there was a studio recording with Susan Egan and Jason Gray, Judy Kay, and Elaine Stritch in one of her last roles.
Susan Egan was Belle on Broadway.
Yes, I know. Yeah.
I think we've exhausted farce musicals. And Dom, you are my aunt. There you go.
I am your aunt, and the vicar has walked into the studio. Lovely new studio.
Yes.
Nicholas Hudson, may I just say.
Thank you.
I'm sure we can think of more musical farces.
We can, and we can return to the subject whenever we want. Dom, thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Farcical Talk.
Thank you.
I shall speak to you soon, and stay sane.
Oh, yes, stay sane indeed.
And shut the doors on the way out. Thank you.
For more information about Musical Talk, please visit our website at musicaltalk.co.uk. You can email us at feedback@musicaltalk.co.uk, listen to past episodes on iTunes and YouTube, and follow our social media channels on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.